Hi everyone and welcome to today's webinar. We are really excited to be welcoming you to our distance learning with G Suite for Education in Glow.
Hi everyone and welcome to today's webinar.
I'm about to turn off their YouTube sound and I didn't do it myself. We're really excited because we have some great speakers today. Firstly, I just wanted to let you know that we'll be joined by Ailey, who is a Google certified trainer, and some of you may know she is on the Google for Education scene quite a lot. She's actually leader of the GEG Scotland group in Scotland, which is awesome. And she's going to be going through some of the top tips for using some of the tools in G Suite that you can access through Glow. We're also really lucky to be joined by Ian Vosser, who is from a school within the South Lanarkshire Council, and they've been using G Suite for Glow for a long time, but he's going to be talking specifically about how they're now using it for distance learning. And we were also going to be joined by Tom Coles, who is the product owner at Glow for G Suite for Education, and he's going to be sharing some kind of updates and just a bit of an overview about what's happening with Glow right at the moment. So the agenda for today is that I'm going to get kicked off by talking about the resources that are available for you, particularly if you're brand new to G Suite or you just want to learn how to get a bit more information. We're going to be getting hands-on with Ailey, so a couple of the tools that are available, we're going to be getting kind of a bit of a deep dive into how you might use them. And then, as I said, we're going to be joined by Ian, who is going to be talking more in detail about how they're supporting learning at home. And then at the end of the webinar, we will bring everyone in and there'll be an opportunity to ask questions to the panel. And basically, any questions that you put down the side of the YouTube channel today, just in the chat, you'll see people have started to look to write answers, and people were given their favourite biscuits. So if you haven't done that yet already, please share, because it's always quite entertaining to watch. But please ask any kind of serious questions you have in there as well, and we'll try and get to a lot of them at the end, although we may not have time to answer all of them. So, Google for Education. So for those of you that are brand new to Google for Education, I just wanted to kind of really identify and highlight what the key tools are. So when we talk about Google for Education, which is my team, I didn't really introduce myself, but I'm in the Google for Education team in the UK. My role as National Accounts Manager is to look after Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland and London. So I work really closely with the Glow team, but also with local authorities and the trainers in Scotland to basically make sure that you guys are kind of heard and listened to, but also that you're getting the best out of the tools. So we have G Suite for Education, which is available through Glow, and essentially that gives you access to things like Google Docs and Google Sheets and Google Slides and Google Forms and Google Sites. Basically, this productivity suite of tools that can be used anywhere at any time on any device. But we also have Chromebooks, and some people tuning in might potentially be one-to-one Chromebooks in their school, which is really great, and every student has a device. And some local authorities are just starting out and maybe trialing devices, and some that aren't using Chromebooks at all and maybe using different devices to access G Suite, which is fine, right? G Suite can be used on any device. But for those of you that are interested in Chromebooks and to look at them a little bit further, obviously these can be procured through the Scottish Framework, through our partner XMA, and we have a great team there who can support you through that. So if you have any questions specifically about that, we're not going to be talking about Chromebooks today, but you can ping a question in the chat and I can give you a little bit more information. And finally, Google Classroom. This actually does sit under G Suite for Education. It is one of the tools, but we like to break it out because it is a little bit unique and it is a little bit different for our education customers. So Google Classroom essentially allows you to bring all of that content together that you might create in G Suite, and allows you to set assignments, mark work, give feedback, communicate with students in a really nice format. And it was created specifically for education, for educators to use with their students initially, and now is available widely to be used across consumer accounts too. So most of you probably are using Google Classroom at this moment in time if you haven't been using it already. So as you guys have probably signed up for the webinars today, you would have seen that we're hosting a number of webinars specific to Google for Education tools. So yesterday, for example, we had one specifically on Google Forms, and we've had one on Jamboard this week. Previously, we've done specific ones on Google Classroom and Google Meet. And you can find all of these past webinars all hosted on this website, but also the ability to register for getting information about new webinars that are coming up. So head over to bit.ly/GFE UK webinars and you'll find all of that information in that place. Now, in addition to that, we also are running something called virtual office hours. And essentially, this is like a drop-in session that you can have with a Google for Education expert who can tell you more about answer kind of specific questions and tell you a little bit more about how to use G Suite in your particular situation. And this is really one-to-one support. So I'd really urge you to go and use that if you are kind of new or you're a head teacher or you're part of a local authority and you're just kind of getting to grips with G Suite. This is definitely the place for you to go and have a look at that and to speak to someone. And to be honest, like, just use it, right? It's there to be used, and we're really excited to have people drop in daily. And right now it's running every day. So feel free to sign up for it on the website too. Now, we have a ton of resources, and I'm sure that as the feedback that I'm getting when I'm speaking with the Education Scotland team is that people in Scotland and probably educators across the world are being inundated with information. If there's nothing else to remember, just remember this website out of today's webinar. We have a website called Teach From Home, and you can find it at teachfromhome.google. And basically, it's a hub of information to help teachers who are teaching at home, as it says on the tin. And so basically, this links out to a lot of resources. And actually, we're continuously updating this website. So in addition to things around G Suite and learnings and training around setting up a Google form, for example, we're also adding things on there for Be Internet Legends and using YouTube content to support children and learning at home. We are going to be building out the parent section as well, so it might be something that you want to share with parents, but it's a great resource site and definitely something that, as I said, if you don't remember anything else today, head over to Teach From Home because it will basically link you out to everything you need to know that Google are offering for education right now. In addition to that, most of you on the call, probably if you're already G Suite users, will know about this first, our Teacher Centre. It has content on there around kind of like if it's your first day using Google Classroom, you can head on there and it will be about a 5-minute training session on how to get up and running. And it does cover all of the tools covered in G Suite. There's also some things on Chromebooks on there. Most importantly, and the one thing I would definitely urge you to go and have a look at, even if you use a Teacher Centre a lot anyway, is that we've actually just introduced some specific content around distance learning. So when you go to the Teacher Centre, there's a banner that comes up at the top and it asks you to kind of go over to the distance learning content. So I definitely recommend doing that because it's really useful and it's really most obviously valuable right now. So go and take a look, and all of that's there, and it's brand new content as well. So if you haven't seen it before, it's probably useful to you. And for those of you, and I'm sure that Ian will talk to this a little bit more later on, and what South Lanarkshire have done, particularly with their digital champions, is that we do have a kind of certification path for educators. And we're finding right now, whilst teachers are at home, and not saying that they have more time, but maybe there's a bit more flexibility in what they can work on in the day rather than being in front of students, is that we are, the level 1 and level 2, for example, educator certificates are on there that teachers can sit and become certified in using G Suite for Education. And then, you know, if they want to kind of progress from that, there's the certified trainer. And then once everything, I guess, gets a little bit back to normal, we'll also be opening up the Innovator program again. So definitely a good resource to go and check out. And it has basically all the different content to help you. And if there's any kind of follow-up questions you have from today, I definitely recommend going there. And finally, just linked to the Teacher Centre, we have these kind of first day trainings that can be sent to email and to your inbox. I think this is a really useful tool right now because teachers who generally maybe need a little bit more sort of hand holding or need a little bit of support from someone, this will actually kind of go to their inbox. They're not having to search out information, and you can sign up and basically you can get all of the emails in one go. So there's kind of 8 short lessons, or you can ask for them to be every week. So a really great way for you to kind of get your teachers upskilled and not kind of having to send them off to different links here, there and everywhere. So that's it from me. I'm actually just going to pass over to Tom, who is also joining us today. Hi, Tom.
Hi, Kiri. How are you doing?
Hi, good, thank you. Did you want to introduce yourself? And then I know that you're going to give a bit of an update and an overview on what's happening in Glow right now. So I'll leave you to introduce yourself and kind of go from there.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me, Kiri. It's really great to be on here. I've done quite a few of these sorts of meetings, and actually, it seems to be going really well. I've got 2 roles. 80% of the time, I'm an English teacher on the Isle of Skye, which is very lucky. If you can hear the lambs outside the window, that's what they are. But my other role is for Education Scotland, working as the product owner for G Suite within Glow. So really my job is to try and represent the needs of different G Suite users back to Education Scotland and to Google, and also to try and develop the use of G Suite for Education, which is obviously going really well at the moment due to external factors. Anyway, I just thought I'd just point out how impressive a lot of the work the teachers have been doing has been. It's been really great to see people sharing loads of different tools they've been using, different applications, different ways they've been using different tools.
Tom, we get a bit of audio delay on your end. I don't know if you just want to just turn your camera off, because sometimes it will help.
Yeah, I'll try that. I'll turn the camera off.
That's better. It seems to be better.
So it's been, hopefully, there we go, technological difficulties. But it's been really great to see how these services have been used to just keep continuity between teachers and administrators and pupils, and making sure that we can close those gaps that would have existed. It's really great to be in contact with students as much as possible and just keep them learning, to keep them achieving educational outcomes. And it's been really impressive to see in general how well the service has held up. I'll just put some figures on it. We found out today that at a peak of 80,000 students at any one time across Scotland only using G Suite for Education. And that's also, there's been about 250,000 students on any one day using Glow. So it's really been a stress test for the system, and it seems to be holding up. So it's been absolutely fantastic. And yeah, I'll be looking forward to answering people's questions later on if they have them in the chat. Thanks, Kiri.
Awesome, thanks, Tom. I'm sorry we had a bit of technical problems there, but Tom will be available to answer any questions later, but also in the chat. So if you do have any questions specifically for the Glow team, Tom is here. And I know that I think Alan is also in the chat because I saw him post earlier. So we do have some of the Education Scotland team here to answer any of your questions. Thanks, Tom. Okay, so with that, I think now really for the meaty bit of the webinar today, we're going to pass over to Ailey, who is going to take us through hands-on with how we can use the tools. Hey, Ailey.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Introduce yourself. It would be awesome just to, for those of you that don't know you.
Yes, so I'm Ailey Mackay. I am now based in Edinburgh, previously Aberdeen. I work for the South East Improvement Collaborative. I'm a Google trainer, quite googly, also an innovator, attended Sweden last year. And yeah, so I am here with Apps Events to do a bit of training today and just show you some of the tools that you have available within Glow. So I'm just going to share my screen, and I think I'll just get started because
over to you.
I have quite a lot to get through. And yes, so first of all, I'm going to talk through Google Classroom. This is really at the heart of everything to do with G Suite for Education. Here, and you'll see that I've got a few classes already. I don't have many students in this for demoing at the moment. And if you have never used Classroom before, the first time you open it, you will be able to get it from your Glow Launchpad if your council have enabled G Suite for Education. And if it's not on your own My Launchpad, you'll be able to get it from your local authority one as well. So I've opened this up. The first time you use it, you will need to select your role as a teacher, and that will enable you to create classes. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'll just talk you through creating a new class. You'll see I've got a couple here for my reading groups. So I'm going to do the same again and create a class for another reading group that I've got. So I'm going to go to the add icon at the top right of my screen and select create class. I'm going to stick with the same theme for my reading groups, and I'm going to call this the Lions and select create. This is the only bit of information that's required. The rest is optional, so it's up to you whether or not you want to use that. Now, it will take a few seconds to create this class. It just depends on how the internet's doing, so hopefully it won't take too long to load today. Fingers crossed. And this will open the classroom straight away, as you see here. So it will give your classroom a banner, and we can always change the theme at the right-hand side of the banner here, or you can upload your own image. Underneath the name of the classroom, we've got a class code, and this is unique to your class, and only students within or teachers within your own organisation will be able to use this code to join your class. Now, this isn't really the best way to add students to our class at the moment, as we can't really display it to them for them to join our classroom. So the best way for us to add our students, I'm going to skip past a few tabs at the moment and go to this People tab. And this is the best place for us to add our students at the moment whilst we're working remotely. So this is also where we can invite co-teachers. So I can select this invite teacher icon and type in the name of a teacher I wish to co-teach the classroom with, and then select invite. They will then have to accept that invite, or I can select students in the same way, and you can type in multiple people at the same time. I would recommend having some demo classes or test classes if you're new to Google Classroom, just so that you can get an idea of how it looks, how it operates, and it means you can make those mistakes before going live with students. That's certainly what I do. I have quite a few things going in the background to test all the features, certainly when there's new features coming out. So you'll see at the bottom, this student is now invited. They will have to accept that invitation when they open Google Classroom themselves. And now we're going to skip back to the stream. So this is the first area of the classroom that opens when we load our Google Classroom. And this works in the way typical social media works, with the most recent posts at the top, and it goes in historical order in that way. I can share something with my class. I could do a quick hello message and post that. I could also have things scheduled. So thinking about our workload at the moment, I could do a little hello for each day and schedule that for the next day, and do that just so that everything's done and I don't have to remember to do that in future. You can change the time and you can always select the date. The next thing just to show you is by default, our Google Classrooms they allow students and teachers to post on the stream. Depending on your class, you may want to change that. It's obviously up to you. So we go to the settings icon at the top right. And as we scroll down, we've got the stream settings. So this is where we can change the student access to the stream, and we could have it so that the students can only comment on a post that you as the teacher have created, or you can have it that they can't comment or post at all, and only you as the teacher can post or comment. So it's really up to you in what way you want students to interact with it. I know sometimes if you enable students to post and comment, your stream may get a little bit messy as they kind of get used to using that platform. Once you've changed that, you can select save, and then that will update it. So students can no longer post, but they can now only comment on something that I have posted to the stream. The next place to skip to is this classwork section. And this is really where most of the work will happen in your classroom. The stream's nice for keeping in touch, doing odd updates, but the class work section is where you will share any assignments, any resources with your students. Now you will see at the top here, we've got a Google Calendar and a Class Drive folder. So it's worth noting that any task that you assign in your Google Classroom that has a due date will automatically go into the Classroom Google Calendar. And this will work in the way a kind of planner will for your students, so they can see when things are due. So I know some schools right now are operating with tasks set on a Monday for the Friday, so you could maybe do it in that way as well. Just it means everything will be visible to the students, and it will also have a folder in Google Drive. So you will have a classroom folder in your Google Drive with all of the tasks and a folder for each of your classrooms. And students will have the same. It's just they will only see their work within that folder. So the next thing I'm going to demonstrate is creating an assignment. So this create button here allows us to do a few things. So we can create assignments. There's quiz assignments, questions, materials. We can even reuse posts from other classrooms. So just thinking about saving time, you can reuse something you've used with a previous class and create topics. I like to use topics to organize my classrooms, and I tend to have these set before I start putting up work, just so that I have that structure in place from the get-go. So as a primary teacher, I would have my literacy topics. You may even want to have your topics sorted in weeks. So you might have week beginning and all the work associated with that at the moment. And you'll see the new topic goes to the top. So if you had a week beginning the 27th of April, for example, that would be at the top. And then as you put in next week's with the 4th of May, that would be at the top there. So it just depends how you work. Some people also like to have a topic for previous work. And then that allows you to archive any tasks. And I would put that at the bottom of your classroom. So I'm now going to create an assignment to go with one of these topics. And I'm going to do a writing task. Now I'm going to set the date as well. So today's date is the 30th. And this just means it's easier for me when I go back to review my tasks to know what date it was set on. And it also makes it easier for students if they access their to-do list as well. I'm going to give it specific instructions. As you can see, these are really detailed. And now I'm going to start thinking about the work that I want to attach to this. So you have these options underneath the instructions to add or to create documents to attach here. So I can add either from my computer, I can add a link to a YouTube video, but right now I'm going to focus on my Google Drive. In here, I've got some documents I've opened recently. So I've got the planning document within Jamboard that I'm going to use, and it will automatically make it that students can view the file. Now I'm going to change that, and I'm going to make it that it makes a copy for each student. And what that means is it will put the student name in the file name, and every student will get their own version of that document. So they can edit it in any which way they like, and it won't affect how other students interact with their own documents. If I just expand that list again, you will see there was the option to view the file. That would mean the students couldn't edit it at all. That's useful if you want to share something for a student to read prior to completing questions, or just as a material to support them with any work that you've assigned within the task. And the students can edit the file. It's great for any collaboration you want the students to do, as they will all be working on a file at the same time, perhaps. And it also means that they are editing the file that you're sharing on the classroom. Making a copy means that they have their own copy of it and they can work in their own way. The editing the file will mean that multiple people can work on one document at the same time. The next part is to create. So I could also upload a document for the students to use as well. This is a newer aspect of Classroom, and it is very useful. I would recommend having the document, certainly when you're new to using Classroom, and if your students are newer to using Classroom, as it just means that it's a bit more structured and you're not relying on them uploading documents initially. So I'm going to create a doc for them to complete their writing in. So I'll just create that and open. And again, I'm going to name this, and I'm going to use the date again. I like to use the date just so it's a bit more structured for students, and give the task name. And then you can just leave this blank, and that just means it's there for students to complete their writing. If I can now close this, it might take a little minute for the name of the document to update here. And now what I will do is I'll make a copy for each student again. And that again means that they have their own copy and their writing is saved in their own document. I'm now going to move to this right-hand corner of the right-hand side of the screen and just talk through some of the key features here. And again, things that can save us time as teachers. So here we can select the menu, and we can select multiple classes to assign this task to at the same time. It's worth noting that if you are to schedule an assignment, you cannot schedule it to multiple classes. You can only assign it to the multiple classes. And you can also select which students. Now, right now I don't have students in this class, but with your class list, you could deselect all students, and this would allow you to differentiate your work. So you could have different tasks for different students in your class. You would deselect the all students and select the individuals you wish to have that activity. We can assign a points value. It's probably best sticking to the 10 or 100. That's probably the most common points values used. 100 allows it to calculate a percentage if we use the rubric, which I'll talk through shortly. We can set the due date, and as I said previously, if we set a due date, that will allow the students to see that in their Google calendars that are associated with the classroom. So I'll set the due date of next week. And we can then choose the topic. And because I created my topics first, it means I can quickly choose literacy. But if you don't have that topic created yet, we can create a topic at this point. I'll make a topic for writing. Now underneath, if you used all of these previous features, these may be the newer features for you, the rubric and originality reports. And these are just two tools to support our assessment of any learning. So the first thing I'll talk through is this rubric. Now this is your assessment criteria for the task, and students are able to view the rubric that you have assigned to the piece of work, and it helps them understand what they need to do to be successful in their work. Now we can import these from Sheets, so if you've got one that you've used previously, you can do that. And likewise, you can reuse a rubric that you've used in the classroom previously. I'm going to show you creating a rubric from scratch. So this is what it looks like when it loads. I can give the criterion a title. So I'm going to say adjectives for this. And I'm just going to skip the description. You'll notice the points value at the top, and this will match the maximum points value that you provide. So I'm going to do the adjectives one, and I'm going to do for 1 point, I'll say limited use of adjectives. And then I'm going to add some more as I go along. So I'll do for 2 points, I just do the same level title for speed, but you can be a bit more specific with this. Some use of adjectives. And then for 3 adjectives, add description throughout. Oh, can't type the written work. And get rid of that extra I. Now I'm going to add another criteria. What I could do is I can use these 3 dots and I can duplicate for speed. So I can have again the 3, 2, 1, or I could have simply added underneath. So I could add another one, give it a different title. So I could talk about the citing of work. So if this was maybe for students in secondary, I could cite the work a bit more clearly. And then I can say for 5 points, they have a use citation tool, select for sources, and then so on. So once I'm happy with that criterion and with that rubric, I can save. You'll see it's got 11 points total, and that you can see there as well. The originality report is something that's fantastic for our students, more, I would say, in upper secondary when it comes to their advanced higher work and prep for university. And the originality reports is really checking for that authenticity. So it's checking against what's on Google and making sure that their work is their own, or if it is cited from somewhere that they have referenced that. So if they haven't referenced it, they can run that originality report. It will flag it to them and they can go and amend that. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to assign this to the class, and I'm going to skip into a classroom I prepared earlier to show you what it looks like when we come to marking. It's taken a wee minute to load. So I'm just going to go back to my classroom overview, and I'm going to go into this distance learning Glow classroom that I have here. So I'm going to go into classwork, and I know that I have got a piece of work on the ocean ready for me to mark. So I can see that I have got a student who has turned this in, and no one else has it to finish. So one has turned it in. Now here I can view all the student work. So because I've got a student in this classroom, it's easy for me to go and review. If a student hadn't turned in their work, you could still view it from this assigned aspect here, and you can go and provide comments. It is good practice to have them turn in their work though, just so that you know it's all completed. So we can select this one to open it, and this will open a marking tool to support us to go through this document. So I can see Guto's got the work done here, but on the right-hand side, I've got this one flagged passage, and that's from that originality report. So he's run it, and we've got one flagged passage. So I'm going to select this just to see a bit more detail about that. So as we can see in grey, it's highlighted the bit that was flagged. And I can now go and I can see what, well, we've got one flagged passage. I can see what web source it matches, and it's greenpeace.org.uk. And I can see the percentage that is flagged, and that's 100%. So depending on the document that you're assessing, it may be just a few percent of it. But Guto's clearly done a very quick copy and paste of this work here. I can click on this web match just to compare the student's work with the web match. And as you can see, it's pretty much word for word. So when I come back, I'll just close this for now. I can then leave a comment for Guto to remind him to cite his work. So I'll just do that at the top here. And let's get this comment. And I can just go, remember to cite your original source as a comment. So that's one way of commenting on that. Down the right-hand side, we've got the rubric. So we can go through this rubric. Now, this is different to the one I created previously. This is for a research task. So I can expand the detail of this, and I can see what he needed to do to achieve mastery, working towards, and beginner. Now, that's where I put just that 3, 2, and 1 previously, and you can give it clear titles. You could do bronze, silver, gold, or just do 3, 2, 1 as I did. So I can say, has he got generic information? Has he got clear facts? I'm going to give him 1 because I know it's copied and pasted. And then I'm going to go into the citing, and let's just say I am going to give him nothing for this one because he has not cited his source. So at the top here, this grade has automatically populated and given him 16.67 out of 100. So that will appear in, once I've returned it, in the grades book in the classroom. I didn't actually mention that previously, but I'll very quickly show you that. And that's this grades tool here. So you can see that that has given Guto his 16.67 out of 100 in that grade book. And that's your overview of your classwork. I can also add a private comment in this bar at the side, and I can just remind him to cite his sources, or I can make use of a comment bank. Now, this is a fantastic time saver. I know I use the same comments regularly when I was providing feedback. So you could create that comment bank for you to reuse over and over. Just to mix in a few others every now and then so students know that you're actually personalizing it to their own work. So you'll see I've got a bank of comments down the side. I can add to the bank quite quickly by putting different words in different lines, and that will generate the source. So cite your source and so on. So I'll do those 2. They will add into my comment bank, and you'll see them at the top there. To use a comment bank, I am going to just highlight the odd a couple of sentences or a couple of words even. And let me just resolve this one, get out of the way. I'll add a new comment. Now I can use the comment bank by clicking hashtag, and it will generate a list that I could use. So I can say review sentence comment, and I could maybe add another one here at the end of, and I could just start typing and it will predict what I want to say. And that's pulling it from that comment bank there. The last thing I want to show you is using Screencastify, and I know some of you will have access to this. It may be that your local authority haven't got it yet, but I know many have got it enabled through Glow. And Screencastify is a web extension that we have on the Chrome browser. And this is something that we can use to provide verbal feedback to our students to support them with accessing that feedback rather than having to read it all. So I'm going to enable the Screencastify browser. It may kick me off from the sharing of my screen, but I'm hoping it won't. So right now we're going to record just the browser tab. I don't need any other information. I'm only going to use my microphone. You could embed your webcam if that would support some of your students. And I'm going to select record. So it will do a countdown timer for me. Here we go. And I can talk through the feedback. So I can highlight bits that I really liked about the work. I could maybe talk about areas where they need to remember to reference their source. And then once I'm happy with that, I can stop recording. Let's have this load. Being quite slow. This internet. Here we go. I can stop recording. That will open in the Screencastify browser on the side. I'll skip this tour. And I can copy that shareable link and I can pop that in as a comment into that document. And then the student can access that and listen to the feedback instead of having to actually read through all of my comments. I'm just
jumping in. Sorry, we're getting a bit. Your screen's gone a bit blurry, I think, because we went to Screencastify.
Checking in on your students for emotional well-being and also for creating self-grading quizzes. So Google Forms, you can create a new form quite quickly by using the shortcut form.new. This shortcut works for Google Docs with doc.new and slides with slide.new and sites with site.new. It's another time-saving tip that I like to have up my sleeve. So I've now got my blank Google form. We can use this for surveys. So you could use this for surveys with parents, carers. You can use it to collect information from your own class, or students could create forms for some data collection as well. I'm going to give it a name of daily check-in, as this is a form I'm going to use quite regularly.
Oh, can you hear me?
The form there, if I click where it says untitled form, it will automatically name it there. Now I'm going to put in a question for the student name, and you will notice it has changed to a short answer automatically. You can make questions required or not required as suits you and your class. I'm now going to add another question using this menu bar down the right-hand side, and I'm going to add in a question, how are you feeling today?
Hey everyone, I've just taken Ailey out of the webinar because we realised that her screen has gone blurry, and I'm not sure that she can hear us. So we're just going to try and get in contact with her. Sky, I think you'll be able to do that. So one thing that I think we probably should do is jump to Ian, if Ian's ready to go. And we will just continue and come back to Ailey with Google Forms afterwards. So I'm going to introduce Ian to the screen. Hi, Ian.
Hi, Kerry. How are you doing?
Good, thank you. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Ian Vosser. I'm the Faculty Head of Digital Literacy and Enterprise at Larkhall Academy, which is in South Lanarkshire.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming to speak to us today. I'm going to pop your screen in and I'm just going to let you get started with sharing your story, and then we'll come back to Ailey after you. Thanks so much.
Great. That's brilliant. Well, Larkhall Academy is a school that's been using G Suite for Education since 2016. We've got over 150 colleagues in the school who've been using it pretty regularly. And across South Lanarkshire, we've got quite a lot of G Suite usage as well. And I think last week we had a weekly high of nearly 30,000 active users. So that's really, really positive. So a little kind of introduction, a bit of background about our school then. We've got over 1,100 learners, including a specialist additional support needs unit. So we've got a real diverse group of people. We are serving the town of Larkhall, as well as the surrounding villages of Stonehouse, Ashgill and Netherburn. And half of our pupils are from the 30% most deprived areas. So when we're thinking about digital education and we're thinking about supporting children, we're having to give real cognizance to the types of environments that these young people will be in. And we've got nearly 300 Chromebooks in our digital estate. So that's about the same number as our Windows PC devices. So we're kind of on a 50-50 footing there. So let me tell you a little bit about then what happened in the days before closure. So we obviously had a little bit of notice that we were likely going to be shutting, and that could potentially be for a bit of time. And I guess at that time, we didn't know how long it was going to be. So we started off by trying to take some time to identify who our key stakeholders were and what they were going to need from us, and whether there was going to be any potential problems we could try and avoid before we got to that point in time. So, one of those things was creating ourselves a space for supporting learning at home on our school website. And another action we took was getting as many devices as possible out to children who needed them, as well as staff colleagues who might need them as well. So just about making sure people had the right tools and knew where to find the right information. A big one was making sure children knew their Glow username and password. We were quite fortunate in the week before the closure. We'd had a visit from Education Scotland. We'd had an inspection. And in the weeks previous to that, we'd made sure that every young person had completed a survey through Google Classroom using Google Forms. So we posted the form into Classroom. And everyone had very recently logged into Glow. So everyone had had a super recent reminder of their username and password. So that was really, really positive. Okay, so when we then ended up with the school being closed and we were off, in those first few days, we very much wanted to look at how we built a new type of relationship with our learners, and our school values were definitely underpinning this. So kindness, togetherness, and resilience are our school values. And how can we make that connection with people? How can we work out how to build and find this new way of learning? And I think that's really challenging for both teaching staff as well as the children, and for their parents and families as well. So everybody's trying something new. It's not happened before. So we're trying to, find our feet and work out what's the best way to support people. So we very much decided to go down a route of asynchronous video learning. So making sure that we got resources and preferably videos up from teaching staff into Google Classroom. So we've been using unlisted videos on YouTube, and we've shared them through Google Classroom because we found in those early days that some broadband providers were making it difficult to play videos from Google Drive. And with those videos, we've had a fairly good engagement rate with young people. So we're looking at around about 80% of our learners in those first 2 weeks when we were being off had made some type of engagement with us digitally. So that's really positive. And we also made a point of making sure that in those early days, and we continue to do this, try and publicize the activities that we're undertaking via social media channels, and trying to point, both parents and young people in the right direction where they can find support, resources, and of course, bits of learning to undertake. And I think, that's really, really challenging because nobody's ever done this before. So, plenty of resilience and plenty of kindness needed at this time, as well as a bit of patience to help people along their way. So one of the things we also put together was some how-to guides to support our colleagues when they're working at home. So for some of them, they may have only dabbled with Google Classroom, potentially only put up homeworks or materials to help with revision. And now we were looking for, lots of learning to be happening via Google Classroom. So a kind of refresher and some information videos to support that. And the tool that we've been using to keep in touch is Google Meet. So how-to guides about Google Meet's gone out as well to support. So let's have a look then, starting off with learners, then we'll talk about our colleagues across the school, and we'll look at parents in terms of actions that we've taken. So one of the things we already had set up that was really useful to us was a year group Google Classroom. So we've very much used that before to make some announcements to all children, and also try and gather their views in terms of doing Google Forms and getting bits of feedback that way. So we made the classrooms kind of more prominent, and we were putting the classroom codes for any new classes that were starting up, or if children had accidentally left a class or whatever, made sure they had big signposts so they knew where to go. I know our principal teachers of pupil support have been doing a fantastic job in having mental health and wellbeing focus in terms of their Twitter feeds, and also on Google Classroom itself, as well as making phone calls home to keep in touch with families. So that work is really important in terms of helping us keep young people engaged. And we're also, for our first and second years, we've now got a suggested timetable of daily activities to help manage the workload. So work should go up on the classroom on Monday, and they've got a week to complete it, and we're looking at due dates on a Friday. So I've already kind of introduced the idea that we created some support how-to guides for our colleagues. Well, one of the really exciting things that I think we did just before the spring break there was we had a Teach Meet where we got over 70 colleagues all onto the same Google Meet, and you can see a little screenshot there of everyone in grid view. And we had a series of short 5-6 minute sessions, and we looked at Google Classroom, Google Forms, Google Docs, YouTube sites, and each of these different areas we had something in particular that we focused on. So, for example, in Docs, it was looking at how we can give better feedback. In Forms, it was looking at how we can use self-marking quizzes to help reduce workload. With Sites, it was looking at how we can share more interactive content. And within that event, we had a Q&A document that ran in the background. So teachers who were watching could go in there, ask live questions and get feedback from the people who were presenting. And it was really nice to see everybody come together. And we're very much looking at replicating that TeachMeet as a local authority in terms of putting information out or sharing information, maybe in live stream trainings to come, because we've got a lot of practitioners who I know are all looking for lots of different support mechanisms and help with this new way of working. So that's something that's really exciting. In terms of supporting parents and their learning at home, well, we were very aware that not everyone had a device and internet access at home. So we have started off by getting home learning packs sent home to those who don't have. And we've gathered the information. So if you don't have an internet connection, you don't have a digital device, we know who you are. And we're looking at getting an internet to them. So maybe through some kind of 4G Wi-Fi box, and also providing more Chromebooks. So I think that's a really exciting thing that's coming. We've got our dedicated home learning area on our website, which is being regularly updated. And that hopefully will provide signposts to parents in terms of what learning can be found by young people on Google Classroom. We're continually looking at how we communicate in home in terms of sending our letters, using group call, emails, Twitter feed. So all of that's constantly under review. And if we can find better ways to do that, then we're absolutely making changes there. And I think what's been really nice to see is we've got a parent voice, like a parent council group, and they found kind of peer support on their school Facebook forum that they've set up. So that's also been really nice to see that the parents have been working together and supporting each other. So what are we wanting to do next? Well, we want to make sure that our teaching colleagues are fully supported in what they're trying to do. So we know lots of work is happening in terms of creating asynchronous video tasks that are available for learners to access when they want. But what resources can we provide teachers to be able to help them produce those? Is it tips in terms of how to present to camera? Is it actually they need some different technology delivered to their homes? Do they need a bit of kind of training to be able to get the most out of the software? So I know Ailey was talking about Screencastify. That's something that we've been making a lot of use of. And also a lot of focus across this year before we went off because of COVID-19, the type of feedback that we're giving young people. So that strength of feedback and those skills that we've developed that we've been using in the classroom, well, how can we translate that using the features that are available in Google Classroom? So some of that's using class comments to give everyone feedback. Some of that's making private comments, using suggesting mode so we can go in and change the work, and then the learners can go in and see what suggestions have been made and make changes there. Within Classroom, of course, and Docs, there's the comments bank and rubrics, and as I mentioned, the Screencastify videos. So one of the things that we want to do is make sure that we're measuring the success and measuring the impact on what we're doing. So I guess there's a couple of big things that are happening there. We're trying to make the most of the information that we can get from Glow. So we can get daily Glow statistics on who's logged in. And so if somebody hasn't logged in for a long time, then we can flag that up to our pupil support and head of year team, who can then kind of go in and find out if we need to make contact with families or if we understand the circumstances there. So we know why they may not be connecting with us at the moment. But also we want to get some feedback from parents from using Google Forms, so they can tell us, well, I say parents, but we're also doing this for parents and learners, because it's really important that we understand, what's important, what's working, what do you need more of, is there anything we should stop doing? And hopefully this is going to enable us to adapt the working practices, because it looks like we could be in this situation for a little bit longer. Maybe expand the G Suite functionalities that we have available to our colleagues, and also make sure if we got any training gaps, we're getting in there and we're filling them and we're supporting staff. So, I mean, that was a real kind of whistle-stop whirlwind run through of all the things we're doing. You can get us on Twitter at Larkhall Academy. That's our school website, or you're welcome to reach out to me as well. Kiri.
Thanks, Ian. Thank you so much. So we do have some questions, and I think just for the sake of time, and just to make sure that it kind of flows on a bit, I think we will bring in Tom and Ailey. We'll do a bit of Q&A now, and then we'll bring Ailey back in at the end to finish up on the demo. So for those people who are kind of dying to ask questions, we can get them done now, and then anyone who we may run over slightly. So if people want to drop off, they can as well. So there was one question that came in, Ian. Actually, this was specifically for you, so I'm going to do this one first, and then I think we'll head back. So so Graham asked, are your online lessons largely asynchronous, or are you doing live lessons?
Yeah, everything is asynchronous, and I think we know this is a really difficult time for families, and I think asking them to be, in terms of a class, everybody on at the same time, I just don't think that was something we were very comfortable with asking of learners at the moment. So, if the functionality became available through Glow, so we access G Suite through the Glow tenancy for Google Meet to allow for live lessons to happen, then absolutely it would be something that we would consider. But I guess we just need to be really careful that we've got the right child protection guidelines in place. We're happy that staff feel comfortable doing that, and we feel comfortable that the learners will be able to join those lessons.
Yeah, great. Thank you for that. Another question. Sorry, not another question. Tom made this comment in the live chat, so I thought I'd bring it in and let Tom just speak to us a little bit more about what you're planning to do and kind of where we're at with this thing for rubrics.
Yeah, so at the moment, I'm basically trying to find teachers from different subjects. I'm an English teacher, so I've done the ones for English at the moment, but basically just producing a bank of rubrics that can be spread around, passed around using the spreadsheet function, and then imported into people's classrooms, so that basically to take a lot of work off people. And it does make it very easy, especially I know that a lot of people are working in the primary sector, but in the secondary sector, marking coursework and practice essays and things like that is a big deal. And if there's a way to make that a little bit quicker and slicker by producing rubrics for each subject that can be passed around, then that's what I'm planning on doing as part of my role for Glow.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Really cool, Tom. That's certainly something I know our staff would like to use, and it's like with the originality reports, rubrics, really great features that I know colleagues across our school are using.
Yeah, and I think just to kind of for the same, right? Like I think we're seeing a lot of use cases of where centralized rubrics are being created, and so it's amazing that you're looking to do this for everyone. So I'm more particularly to start with some at least. I think I just had a couple of questions for you. Probably this is more aimed at Ian right now, but Ailey, I'd love to get your kind of thoughts. And Tom, actually, this is a question for everyone. How do you feel that learners are experiencing learning at home, and is it hit and miss, kind of who you're engaging with, and what do you find is kind of the biggest frustrations from teachers in the current situation, and how do you feel that technology is helping you to overcome some of that? I think I'll put that question first to Ailey.
Okay, so I think, well, right now with my role, so I'm an education support officer, so I'm currently supporting teachers and upskilling, because that is a massive thing that we're all focused on at the moment, is making sure that teachers have the skills to be able to navigate this online world. I know many authorities, it has been a priority, but this has just pushed it right to the top of the priority pile. And I've been hosting daily training sessions on Google Meet for staff in 2 local authorities I work with, so East Lothian and Mid Lothian, and actually just supporting teachers every day to just upskill a new tool every single day is helping them to understand how to use the tools with their classes. But I know certainly the frustrations can be that there are different expectations. Some schools are doing it synchronous teaching, some aren't. I work with one authority that's Inglo, one authority that's not. So I get the different balance of how things are working. And I think we're comparing ourselves to other people an awful lot right now and how they're operating, but it's really just what's best for our own learners, and making sure that they're safe and healthy first and foremost, rather than getting that task handed in classroom. I think that's where my priorities would be if I had my own class.
And Tom, what about you? I know you're kind of in a similar situation, right, in being in the Highlands Council, but what are your experiences from your learners? How are they finding it?
I think they're worried, obviously, about coronavirus, and actually one of the priorities, and I think there's been really good guidance from the government and from lots of authorities saying, especially early on, that the first priority was to make contact with students to support them and their feelings about these strange times. And I think that would have been really difficult to do if it wasn't for this sort of technology. But as time's progressed, it's trying to sort of give them an educational offer, which is never going to be the same as it is in a classroom, but is going to give them some real world experience and skills and keep them on track for developing the skills they'll need in the future. And I think we've been seeing, similar to Ian, we've been seeing sort of 80%, 90% engagement rates. And there are always these hard to reach students, but they're not always the ones that are disengaging or finding it tricky. We've got a lot of students at the moment who are busy doing the lambing. So we don't see them. They're out in the fields, helping their dads and their granddads out. So, and these are great kids who'll come and do the work. But I think quite a lot of them have thrived from the fact it's a bit more flexible. They don't have to do all the work in one go. They can work in the evenings and do something else in the daytimes, and they're quite enjoying that kind of flipped classroom. Again, there's always kids who find these things more difficult, and but they're being supported, and it's working pretty well. I'm surprised by how well it's working. I thought it might not work so well.
Thanks for that. And Ian, just over to you. I know you've shared quite a lot already, but it'd be great just to think about your learner's journey.
Yeah, so I think, initially it was just about making sure we've got that connection and finding what works for them and what works for us. And, as time goes by, that's changing. And, it's not even as if our approach is changing on a week by week basis. It's almost on a day by day basis. And, every day something new is cropping up, and, people are coming up with different ideas. And I'm like, okay, well, let's try it out. Let's see what we can do. How can we make that work? And, just keep, pushing it forwards. And, when we find something that works, making sure we're sharing that as well, so other people can give it a go. But, I guess a tip from me would be try and find what works with the young people who you work with. And you're probably best placed to know what that is because you work with them every day.
Awesome. And just another question for you, Ian, to start with, and maybe the others will have something to kind of add to, but particularly when we think of kind of local authority level and how the local authority is supporting, I'd love for you to just give a very, very quick rundown about how you're using kind of certified trainers within your local authorities to support other schools right now, and how you're sharing best practices.
Yes, so last September, we started a journey with 20 people who wanted to kind of be Google for Education certified, and nobody really in that group quite knew what that was going to look like or how it would work out. But by December last year, we had 20 people who were putting in a Google for Education certified trainer application, and many of those are now trainers working across the authority. So we've got a Google Classroom where we all share ideas and resources with one another. So that's been a great place to be able to bounce ideas around. So people looking at, for instance, parent guides, because parents are really interested about how Google Classroom works. So someone's got a parent guide, they've shared it up, and other people have been able to make use of that. So that group training, in terms of getting a good group of people together from across primary and secondary, has worked really nicely in forming a community, and that community has been working together to try and support all the schools in our local authority. So we've got about 150 nursery, primary and secondary schools, and then more early years establishments on top of that. So it's a big authority. So when you're trying to get lots of people to do lots of different things, and this is all very different, working from home and primarily using technology as our kind of method of communication, then having the right mechanisms in place to be able to support people is so important. So I know a few of the trainer team are watching, so hello, and thank you very much for your work. It is really, really appreciated by everyone.
Yeah, and they're doing an awesome job as well. And I know we've kind of been working together on that. So yeah, really great to see, and great to see how it's kind of come in. Maybe it's accelerated, right? Like what?
We were really excited at a local authority level of getting another group of 20 people through their educator and kind of trainer status, just because of the size of the authority. That many hands make light work, but we might be looking at doing that online now as opposed to in person, and that in itself is exciting as well.
Yeah. And Tom, I guess, how do you see kind of your role? Obviously, you've given kind of one example about what you're doing, and obviously it is just you, and you're still a full-time teacher. So we're not, there's obviously only a certain amount we're going to be able to achieve with kind of that. But how do you envisage the GLOW resources and support kind of progressing to be able to help at scale rather than just individual schools kind of looking to each other?
I think the idea is to look for opportunities where you can stop people sort of doing the same work twice. So things like the rubrics where you're bringing it together, but also sharing around best practice across the place. I know in Highland there's been some great examples of resources that have been created and spread around. And I guess the thing is to make sure that, you know, where some authorities are maybe a little bit further ahead with their training schemes or their use of G Suite, that they can be paired up. And I think it makes more and more sense to do that with teachers across Scotland, and making sure that really we're using the skills that there are in the teaching community to support each other. Because we talk a lot about pupils, and obviously pupils and education is the focus, but really making sure that as a teaching staff we look after each other and we look after ourselves as well, because there's a big risk of people feeling burnt out and, you know, comparing each other, comparing themselves to other people too much. At the moment we're doing the best we can, and I think every teacher in Scotland is doing the best they can, and with a bit of support they could be doing even better.
Yeah, and just really important to note, and I'm not sure if you picked it up earlier when because I know we had a bit of technical issues with Tom's microphone, but basically there will be some resources coming, and the GLOW team are working on putting together some helpful resources for supporting teachers at this time. So just watch this space on that one. I know there's some of the Education Scotland team in the chat, so if there's any more information than that to share, I don't know how much or little. That's kind of the bulk of information that I have, but yeah, it would be good to just keep an eye on that.
I'll put some into the chat, but not too much. Don't overwhelm people.
Awesome, thank you. I think we'll wrap up the questions there. We do have a feedback form. We'd love to get your feedback on today's webinar as we go do more of these, and we'd love to do more of these and make sure that we're doing them relevant to what you need. With that, I'm actually going to take out Ian and Tom and say thank you so much for joining today. I'm going to bring back Ailey on her own and her screen, and we're going to go and have a share of Google Forms now. I think Ailey will do Google Forms and then we'll wrap up.
Yeah, that's
awesome.
Absolutely fine.
Okay, so thank you. Over to you.
Fab, thank you. So sorry about the technical difficulties. It's always good to know that we always have these problems and can overcome them. So I am going to basically go over the Google Forms bit from the start. So the Forms short. So I am just going to close these two tabs here. I am going to go to form.new to create a new Google form. And this will create the survey style Google form. So I'm going to use this to create a daily check-in. I'm going to give it a name here. So I'll type daily check-in. And this will be an emotional well-being check-in for my class. I'm going to give it a question. The first question I'll do is name, and you'll note it'll change to short answer automatically. There's some machine learning built into Google Forms to help you with just a quick process in creating all of your forms and documents. You can make these required or not depending on your class and what information you're collecting. And then I'm going to add a question on how are you feeling today? And for this, I'm probably going to change the question type. So I'm going to change it, and you could have it as a short answer if you want the students to actually type freely in terms of how they are actually feeling. Paragraph is much longer, so you probably wouldn't want to choose that. The checkboxes option allows us to choose multiple things out of a selection, and the drop down would allow you to choose one from a larger menu. You probably would want to use that if it's too large for a multiple choice. I am going to use this linear scale option, and just to note, there's multiple choice grids and checkbox grids, which allows you to select one in different rows or multiple in different rows. So I'm going to choose the linear scale, and I'm going to make this 1 to 10. And I'm going to choose my first label as sad, second label as happy. And that will allow students to choose on the scale where they are feeling today. I'm going to make that required. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to preview this form just to see how it looks for my students. So to do that, we're going to select this eye at the top, this small icon. And then you'll see this is how the form will look to your learners. So I'll see that this isn't required because it doesn't have a red star next to it. But I will just type in as an example. And then I'm going to choose one of the numbers along here. You can copy and paste in emojis as well, if depending on the age and stage of your class. Then I'm going to select submit. Now, if I close this, we'll now see that I have one response in my form. I can go and view the response summary. I'll have a graph, and this will change depending on the question type as well to show the data in the best way. And what's important to note is we can generate a spreadsheet from this form to collate all of our responses in one place. So if I select this to open and create a new spreadsheet, this is a live document that will populate as new responses come through. So I don't need to always go back to the form. I can check in on the spreadsheet. Depends on the data. So we'll see that I've got the name and I've got the feeling. So I could see the overall class summary in one place. And we're going to close this. There's a few more settings we can do in forms. So if you wanted to create a form for your parents or carers to fill in, if we select the settings cog, I can then turn off this restriction. So it will automatically restrict to users within your domain. So, within your local authority. And that will mean that the student will need to sign in, or the teacher will need to sign in to access it. If I switch that off, they will not need to sign in, and anyone can now fill in that form. When I'm ready to send it, I've tested the form, I'm happy with it. I am going to select the send button, and the most common way to send it is by this link. So by clicking on the link, I can copy this as it is, or I can shorten it to make it far easier for you to use. And that's the same as the form that you've just seen on the screen. So I'll copy that. And now I'm going to go back into my classroom. I notice I've actually closed that. So what I'll do is I'll go to the menu here and I'll open up my classroom to share this with my students. And I'll go to my classwork. I'll create an assignment under my daily check-in. So I'll put the date in for tomorrow. Please complete as my instructions. And I'm going to add this as a link to the form. I'll put the topic as my daily check-in, and then I will schedule this for tomorrow. And then that will be ready for my day tomorrow, and I don't need to think about it again. And you can see that with the date there. The last thing I'll show you with forms before we finish is creating self-marking quizzes, and then that'll be us done. So there's a couple of ways we can do quizzes. We can do a brand new form. And in the settings, before we get started with the form, you can select quizzes and make the form a quiz. Or we can do this directly from Google Classroom. So we can go to create quiz assignment, and then it will create the blank quiz here where we can open and start editing it. So I'll give it a title, and I'm just going to do colors. And I'm going to do a quick question of red and yellow mixed together make. And then the options. So I can pop in the options depending on your question. It may give you some answers as that you can pre-populate with without having to type them in. Typically capital cities work really well. So I can do a few options and blue and orange. Now at this point, I can add an answer key. So this isn't there for the survey type forms. I can add the answer key in. This allows me to give points to the question, and it also allows me to select the correct answer. So I clicked on that answer to select it. I can also add answer feedback. So if they got it wrong, you could give them feedback or some next steps, something for them to review. You could link in a document for support or a YouTube video. And for a correct answer, you could always provide a follow-up or just a simple well done. When you're happy with the form, we can go back to the classroom. I'll just make sure it's named at the top here. We can go back to our classroom. Everything will save automatically as well. I've not quite said that yet, but it will save automatically. I can give this the title, and I'm going to assign it to the topic of art. I can then assign that straight away to my students, or as always, schedule or save as draft. That will self-mark. So if you've selected that correct answer, when the students get the form, they will be able to get their scores straight away, or you can always have it so that it can be reviewed once you've reviewed it yourself. So if you've got longer answers or more complex answers, you can have it so that you review it later as well. I think that's all for me, Kerry. Hand it back to you.
Thank you. Thanks, Ailey. We had a couple of questions coming in about shortening links. I just wanted to make sure that people saw my comment, but basically you can't rename a link within Google Forms, but if you're using something like a link management tool like Bitly I can't think of any others. That's the only example I can give. You are able to rename links, but I think you have to pay for Bitly to do that. You can shorten links, and actually, to be honest, in an education setting, you're probably going to copy the link into Google Classroom or put it on a Google site somewhere. So whilst renaming them is fine, I would say that probably shortening would probably suffice for what you would use it for. And just to note as well that when you, if you want to post a link to a form out to parents, for example, you just need to make sure that you turn off the setting that restricts people from within your domain from filling out the form. So if you turn that off, then essentially your form can be filled in by anyone. I don't think we had any other specific questions. So I think from all of us who are on the call today, I just wanted to say thank you all for joining. Thank you for putting up with our technical issues. It's just the joys of working from home, I'm afraid. But these things happen in person as well, right? So I just want to thank you for joining and for asking lots of questions. To all of the speakers that came today to take part in the webinar. And if you would like to give us some feedback, it would be really helpful for us to find out what other webinars you'd like us to put on. You can see it at the bottom of the screen now. I've always wanted to do that. I'm not a YouTube star. And the other thing is, if you have any follow-up questions specifically about the Google tools, then make sure you head over to the Google for Education Teacher Center, because it's got tons and tons of helpful training resources for you there. So with that, I'm going to say thank you from all of us here. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon. Bye.